In this video, we have the battle between two important ideologies. Should you rent or should you buy in the Rochester market? Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every Tuesday and Thursday that I release a new video. That being said, as much as I love making these videos for you on all things Rochester and Finger Lakes living, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number and that email is popping up on the bottom of your screen. I am the guy that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days. I'd be honored to be the team of choice for you. It's never too soon to get the process started and get things going so that you're tracking on the process as you come here, right? There's a lot of moving parts during this process, so I'd love to help and be of service in any way possible. Without further ado, today we're talking about the battle between the ideologies of renting versus buying. There's a whole lot of differences. There's a bunch of pros and cons to both of them, and it's an ideology that a lot of real estate agents, especially my profession, they don't really want to have the conversation about, because we get paid when you buy a house. We can get paid when you rent, but it's unlikely. But we get paid when you buy a house. So a lot of agents aren't going to be honest with you. They're going to make you feel bad about renting a house or renting an apartment or something like that. And I just don't like that. So here we are to debunk some of these myths and to get into this debate. Let's go. All right, so first things first, let's debunk some of these sayings that a lot of real estate professionals will say to you as a consumer, as a buyer or a renter, potentially, right? But you know, before that, so I just want to say that I'm not trying to steer you in any way, whether it's renting or buying. I literally don't give a shit what you do. My sole goal here in this channel and really just in my life is helping you win. If renting is winning for you, then that's amazing. If buying a home is winning for you, that's amazing. I'm happy for you either way. And really what I'm here to do is to help you accomplish your goals, regardless of what that is or what that does for me. So getting into it though, a lot of real estate agents in society will say you're throwing your money away if you rent. And part of me wants to say, like, sure, this might be a little bit true, but when you think deeper about it, like, it's mostly not true. It's not, because when you factor in your down payment, your closing costs, your property taxes, your maintenance, your repairs, any upgrades that you want to do, right? Like, you may be financially better off renting, primarily because you don't have to do that shit yourself. You have a landlord that will do that for you. Now, on the flip side, because we're going to be talking about pros and cons here on both buying and renting, is that you're at the mercy of what your landlord wants to do. Now, if you have a cool landlord or you have a good apartment complex like a management company, they will be putting in appliances, and they will be putting in different like hardware and things like that maybe you're gonna like. Now, some of them don't though. Some of them don't really update the properties very much, and you might be in an outdated unit, but as long as it's safe, sanitary, and healthy, like, then, and it's affordable, then you're good to go. Why does it matter, right? A lot of us, we like to live in luxury, even though we have a small budget that can't afford luxury. You know, sometimes you got to suck that kind of thing up, right? Is it granite countertops versus a hard surface countertop, right? Really depends, but you may be at the mercy of like the landlord's decisions on those kind of things, but you're not paying for it. So that is one of the perks of renting, is like you're not paying for it. So no, you're not really throwing your money away on rent, because you're not taking the risk on the house. You're not paying the property taxes, you're not paying for the maintenance, you're not paying for repairs, you're not paying for a closing costs and the down payment, right? Like, you're not paying for a lot of things. All you have to do is focus on your work and your groceries, and just taking care of the place. That's really it. And taking care of it being not destroying it, because again, your landlord will take care of all the maintenance and stuff like that. So that is definitely one thing that a lot of real estate agents will kind of lie to you about. And it's not that they're necessarily lying, but they're just kind of not telling the full truth about. The next one is that rent is always going up. Now, in some cases, this is also true, but it's not always the case, right? Like some rent actually declines. If you know the landlord, and even, I mean, a lot of private landlords aren't going to be raising rent prices at the same market rate as everything else, right? So I know plenty of landlords who have kept the same rent prices since the time they bought the house, maybe 20 years ago. And just because they are concerned about paying their mortgage, putting a little bit of money aside for maintenance, and, you know, hopefully paying off their other mortgage, right? So they're not looking to rob a tenant. They're just looking to make a little bit of money to pay for the things they need to pay for, and they're happy with that, and also provide good housing. So they've kept the rent the same. So there's plenty of places that you can find that aren't raising the rent prices astronomically. There's one apartment complex I've been to where back in 2017 when we rented there, it was one price. It was, you know, say $1,500 or $1,600 a month. Then 2 years later, we went there and it was almost $2,000 a month. And then, you know, we were looking again and it was roughly $2,200 or $2,300 a month for the same units, right? So yeah, a lot of complexes may be going up in price, but a lot of private landlords will not be raising their price like other places. So something to keep in mind, that's not always true. The next thing that people will say is you'll never be able to save for a down payment if you're renting. And that is not true. That's basically saying that you as a renter are not financially responsible. They're calling you stupid and saying that you can't budget your own finances. And I don't like that, because most people try to be very smart with where they rent and how they budget and how much they put away. Now, an easy way to do this is I don't know if you follow like Dave Ramsey or not, but Dave Ramsey has the zero-based budget. So basically every single dollar that you earn has a place to go. And so it's paying your bills first. So your rent is getting paid, your water, your car payments getting paid, whatever. And then you have a few bucks for like personal fund money. And so every single dollar has a place to go. So once you get paid, that checking account should be basically zero. And you have these different accounts of where this money is going. So then you're not wasting any money and you're not knowing where it's going. You know exactly where every single dollar bill is going. Every single penny is going. And so that's an easy way to be able to save. So as long as you're responsible and you're getting into an apartment that you can afford and that's not living above your means, then you can definitely save for a house, or else most people wouldn't be owning a house, because most people go from renting to buying. So riddle me this, how do they do that? Right? They have to be able to save for that down payment. If they're renting and they're going based off what these people are saying, then that would be impossible. And obviously it's not. So don't listen to that one. And you're not building equity on the house, right? When you rent. And I mean, of course, but you're also likely saving money. You don't have to pay for the repairs. You don't have to pay for maintenance. You don't have to take the time and effort to repair things. You know, and it's also, you know, there is a risk to home ownership that you're not taking when you're renting. So there's all these other factors. So while correct, you're not gaining equity when you rent, you're also not taking the risk of the house, of owning the house, right? From storms or from economic downturn, or, you know, whatever the case is, there's inherent risk when you own a house that you're not taking when you're renting. So that's something to be very cognizant of. Some other things that people say is renting is for people who can't afford a home. And that's absolutely not true. In fact, I know plenty of people who are renting who have $350,000 in the bank. Like they can afford a house. They can afford to buy 3 houses. But they're choosing not to. Why? Because maybe they don't have the time. They don't have the wherewithal to actually make repairs. They don't want to just dispose of their money on a furnace if it breaks, or a hot water heater, or if the basement gets flooded or something like that. Like, they want to be able to get things done for them, right? Maybe one of the parents is in the house and one of the parents is out working all the time. Like, you might not want your spouse who's at the house to have to worry about repairs or whatever. So you have a landlord do that for you. So that is not true at all, that renting is for people who just can't afford a home. That's just insane, right? Renters are at the mercy of their landlords, is what a lot of people will say as well. And while some of this is true, I had mentioned it in the first point that like some of the repairs that you make may not be exactly how you want it done, or some of the upgrades that they do, the color of the cabinets, the color of the appliances, whatever, may not be what you choose. Maybe you're a fan of Whirlpool instead of GE, and they put in GE appliances, right? And you don't like that, but like, you're not paying for it either. You're not taking the time to install that kind of stuff. So like, it really doesn't matter. So yeah, sure, like maybe your landlord will give you a choice, but most of the time they probably won't. But you're also not paying for it, so keep that in mind, right? And then renting is throwing your money away, just like the first one. It's not. I mean, you're basically trading it. You're trading it for a place to live, which is important. That's very important. Most people need a place to live. So, and most people are willing to pay for a place to live, because that's how we live. So no, you're not throwing your money away. You're trading it for a place to live, which is one of the most important things that you can trade your money for. So yeah, like, don't, like, when you hear real estate professionals especially, but also society, talk about these things about renting, they try and make you feel bad for paying the landlord's mortgage, right? Like, there's a lot of benefit to renting. So don't let them get in your head about that, and don't let them force you into buying a home just because, just because they're making you feel bad for renting, or just because that's what they did, or, whatever. Like, there's a lot of benefit to renting a place, and, it's a lot of people do it. A lot of people do it, and it makes sense for a lot of people too. Now let's move forward and talk about the pros and cons of buying a house, right? So number one pro for buying a house is going to be building equity. So like we talked about in the renting, where you're not building equity when you're renting, but you're also not taking the risk, right? With buying a home, one of the cons would be that you are taking the risk of buying a home, but a big pro is that you're building equity on that house, which means your house is gaining value and could make you a lot of money, right? So if you're doing upgrades to the house, if you're customizing it the way that you want to, which is another pro of building a house, or buying a house rather, is that you get to customize it however you want. And whether that's something that's out of date or in today's style, right? You get to choose. It doesn't matter. It's up to you, which is really cool. You get that freedom to choose as far as, how your house is looking, the aesthetics, the functionality, etc., right? But building building equity on your house is super important, because you realistically, you don't have to do anything to that house, and your house could be making money for you. Now, what I would recommend is to make some minor improvements, and particularly improvements to the kitchen and the bathrooms, and so that way you can get the most bang for your buck on any return should you choose to sell that house. But the equity is good, and hypothetically, heaven forbid, you need to pay off a crazy medical bill, right? You could take out a line of equity on your house, and you could pay for that medical bill if you needed to. So in theory, it could act as a credit card. Now, just like a credit card, you will have to pay that back. It's essentially a second mortgage. You're borrowing from yourself, but you can do that, right? You can also take some of that equity and bridge it into another house or a piece of land if you want to buy a second house or a piece of land. You know, should that be a lake house, like a vacation home or something like that, or a piece of land to build a house on, but you can bridge that equity over to that new mortgage and buy something, right? And so a lot of people will take out equity on their home to pay for their kid's wedding or their kid's school. And while I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that, I'm a big fan of using the equity in your house to build you more wealth, right? That's a huge perk of owning a house. And, you know, so just building equity is a huge pro for buying a house. Number two is there are some tax benefits to buying a house as well. I'm not a tax expert. I don't know a ton about that, so I won't really talk about it, but I will just say very briefly, there are tax benefits. Go look into that. You know, there's things on the county websites that I can point you to. And then also if you have a CPA or some other accountant or something like that, then you could refer to them as far as what tax benefits you actually get for your specific scenario. But then if you're a veteran, you also get some other tax benefits as well. The next pro is stability. You have a place to lay your head that you know you're most of the time you're going to be locked into a mortgage rate. You know that you're comfortable being there, and you can feel secure knowing that that is your house. That is where you're going to be sleeping for the foreseeable future. And, you know, that's where you're going to be raising your family. Your family can lay their heads at night, and, you know, you have your own place that provides a sense of stability to your life. You have a place to come home from work to, right? And cook dinner and sit around the dinner table with your family and have conversations, whatever. Like, there's that aspect, which is also really cool about buying a house. I had already briefly touched on the freedom to customize, whereas when you're renting, you are sort of at the mercy of the landlord as far as the upgrades to the house, the appliances that get put in, the renovations that are made, the repairs that are made, right? But when you buy a house, it's totally up to you, which some people don't like that because they get like this, like almost like a analysis paralysis, right? Where there's so many options that they just get paralyzed by the options and they don't know what to do. But the freedom to customize is just amazing, because whether you want something outdated or in today's date, like, you get to choose. You get to do it. Nobody's saying you can't, besides maybe your spouse or your kids or whatever, right? But you can make those choices as you please to update the house however you want, and that is pretty cool. And then, you know, another pro that I'm thinking about is a sense of pride when owning a house, right? A lot of people, especially maybe they come from a family that hasn't owned a house before. They've never owned a house, and in their family, they see it as a sign of like, hey, we've done it now. You know, we've made it. Like, we are fairly successful by society standards, right? Like, there is a sense of pride that comes with owning a home, and that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool feeling for a lot of people. All right, moving into the cons of buying a house, there are a few of them, right? There's a lot of cons that maybe some people don't necessarily think about, and it's important to understand them. So number one con about buying a house is the upfront costs that you're not likely going to get when you rent. So when you rent, you're likely going to get your first month's rent, your security deposit, maybe a pet fee, something like that. You might have to buy a washer and dryer, you know. So there's not much upfront cost to renting a place, depending on where you go, obviously. But, you know, you might be, depending on your rent, you might be paying like $4,000, right? But with a house, you need your down payment, you need closing costs, you need, let's see, you need prorated taxes, you need homeowner's insurance. So there's a bunch of upfront costs that can span upwards of $20,000, right? And more than that, depending on the price point and stuff. If you're in, say, the $150,000 range, you might be paying 14 grand or 13 grand or whatever, depending on your mortgage and your down payment and stuff. So there's a lot of variability, but, you know, I've seen people be paying $56,000 for buying the house, and upwards of that. So there is a significant upfront cost to buying a house. So it's important, like, you have to have money saved up. And the other caveat to the upfront cost is that you're likely going to need reserves in the bank as well. So you can't just pay that upfront cost and then go to a zero bank account, right? You're going to need more money in the bank, because when you move in, you're going to want to do things. You're going to want to buy things for the house. You're going to want to make a small repair here and there, right? Maybe you want to buy paint or something. Like, all of those things cost money. So the upfront cost is super important to understand, that it's pretty significant when you buy a house. And if you're just going house broke, right, being that you spend all your money on just buying the house, well, then now you're playing catch up down the road, and that's just a bad game to be playing. In addition to that is monthly payments. So I'm not talking about mortgage, but in addition to your mortgage and your taxes and stuff, you're also likely to be paying, like, if you have a house that has propane, right, you're going to be paying for propane refills, especially in the winter months here in the Finger Lakes, and that is like stupid expensive. There's all, you're going to be buying filters for your furnace. You're going to be buying maybe paint and, you know, all sorts of different things that will come on a monthly basis. You're going to be paying for your water costs, your RG&E bills, which is your Rochester General Electric, or gas and electric rather. And so you're going to be paying for utilities and, you know, all these other things. So in addition to the upfront costs and your monthly mortgage payment, you're going to be paying for other things as well. So you need to make sure that, you know, you have money in the bank account set aside for these monthly costs. You need to make sure that you're budgeting even more now that you own a house, or else you can get yourself into some bad situations. Number 3 is going to be immobility. So whereas renting, a lot of the time when you rent a place, you can pay like a 2 months rent and give them 30 days notice or 60 days notice or whatever, and you can break that lease. Or you might be able to pay the remainder of the lease however far in you are, the prorated amount type thing. There's different clauses in the rental contract to break that lease, but most of the time you can get out, and you can get out fairly inexpensively. With selling a house, it's a process. It can take a while, right? You might have to make some repairs before you sell it. You might have to paint the house before you sell it. You are probably going to have inspections done before you sell it, right? You're gonna have to get the septic cleaned out and the well inspected, and, you know, all these other things. You're gonna have to notify utility companies and get them to transfer services, and there's a bunch of different things. It's not as easy as just picking up and leaving like you could renting. The other aspect of that is, most of the time, generally speaking, if you're owning a house, you're going to have more stuff, right? Generally speaking, again, you're going to have a family, or you're just going to have more things in your house than you would if you're renting. Most of the time when people rent, they're minimizing their stuff. They're living kind of a minimalist type lifestyle. They're either a young family or a young professional or something like that, and most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, they don't have 6 kids, right? They don't have 5 kids. So they don't have an accumulation of stuff that they can just, it enables them to just pick up and leave. Whereas you buy a house, you own a house, and you're probably going to have a lot of stuff. So you're furnishing, you know, 3 bedrooms worth of the house and 2 living rooms and a kitchen and whatever. Like, whereas you're not getting that when you're renting. The other thing is risk of loss. So in today's market, it's kind of weird. I don't necessarily believe this wholeheartedly, but if the economy had a major downturn, I don't believe that the real estate market is crashing. I don't believe we're in this crazy bubble and stuff like the national media kind of makes it appear. But there is always a risk of loss. If for whatever reason you lose your job and you can't make these payments, and now you got to go for a short sale, or you have to foreclose on the house or something, or storm damage comes along and you can't repair the house and insurance won't cover it, right? Like, there's all sorts of things that could make you lose in this process, right? Lose money, lose time, lose just energy, right? It sucks the energy right out of you. Lose mental well-being. it's a lot. It's a lot, and you know, there definitely is a risk of loss when you're owning a home. When you factor in your upfront cost plus the mortgage payments you've paid and the renovations that you've made, the money you've put into the house to upgrade it. Keep in mind, you don't get a dollar for dollar return on your renovations and your upgrades. Things like a garage, while it might be $20,000 to add a garage bay, you're not getting $20,000 on a sale for that garage, right? Unless it's something just insane that you got a killer good deal on for that garage, and most of the time you're not getting a dollar for dollar return on your investments into the house. So keep that in mind when you're making renovations. The things that you will get dollar for dollar and probably $5 per dollar is the kitchens and the bathrooms. Those are going to be your biggies. You can make your house a smart home by adding a ring doorbell, ring floodlight, and then a smart thermostat, right? 3 smart features in a house can make that house a smart home, and you know, that can go anywhere from 15 grand to 30 grand more on a sale price if you market it that way. So, you know, there's different things you can do to make sure you don't have the risk of loss, right? And that you build the equity and whatnot. But sometimes shit happens, life happens sometimes, and you know, if things do go in a crazy downward spiral for you, there is a major risk of loss, a foreclosure, a short sale, something like that, and it could be dangerous. You know, it could ruin the lifestyle that you have right now potentially. So hopefully that never happens, but that is a risk that's associated with buying a house. So, you know, ultimately, there is no deciding for you whether you should rent or buy. There's pros and cons of both. Obviously, a lot of people, their goal is to buy a house, but that doesn't mean that that's right for you. And so what I always tell people is that when you're making this decision, you know, a lot of people ask, when is the right time to buy a house? And my response is when it's the right time for you. It doesn't matter what the interest rates are. It doesn't matter what home prices are doing. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world is going, if there's a war or not a war, if there's political division, if there's not, right? Like, none of that matters. Is it the right time for you and your situation, you and your family? Is it the right time for you? So it's a very personal and specific question. And if it's not the right time for you, then don't buy a house. If it is the right time for you and you feel like it's manageable for you and that you're ready, then buy a house. You know, don't let other people convince you one way or the other. It's a very personal decision. It's based on what, you know, your finances look like, what your maturity looks like, what you're capable of doing. Do you have the time and effort of a house? Do you have the energy levels? Do you have or do you work so much that you don't have the time to maintain a house and stuff, and so renting would be better, right? So it's really dependent on your situation. I believe in home ownership. I wouldn't be selling houses if I didn't believe in home ownership. But I also get tired of people that make you feel bad for renting when you know, when it may not just be the right time for you. Everybody's got their time in their life that it's going to make sense. If it's not the right time for you, then don't do it, and don't feel coerced or forced into it by societal standards. It's very personal. It's just a very specific decision for you and your family, and just don't let anybody kind of convince you otherwise. And so, that being said, if you do want to have this conversation with me about renting or buying, does it make sense for you and your family? Feel free to reach out. The information's popping up on the bottom of your screen. I am the guy that answers those, and I would absolutely love talking you through these kind of things, asking you the questions that matter, that can help you get clear on what your decision is going to be. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every Tuesday and Thursday that I release a new video just like this one. Talking all things Finger Lakes and Rochester living, whether you're renting or buying or whatever. If you're moving to the area and you're living in the area, I want to chat with you, I want to engage, and I want to build a relationship with you. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out, and make sure you subscribe and click that bell, and we'll see you on the next video. See you guys.